Groovy people, welcome to the channel. I'm your host, the Blue Dragon, and this week it's May's Q&A. What's the deal? In the background, I'm sketching a page of Act 6 of my free Not Safe for Work webcomic, Dark Horse. The links for that comic, they're all down below in the description, and I've got to give y'all a spoiler warning. If you haven't read it yet, go check it out. It's free, you guys, free. But I'm going to be answering the Act 4 questions that I've received first, and then I'll flash a warning for when I'm getting ready for Act 6 answers. Okay, so Act 4, the first question. What's the deal with Kanna's hair and dress in Act 4? We finally get to see the dress from the Volume 1 cover. I'll flash an image of that up on the screen. When Kanna shows up to kind of chastise Rin for forgetting Yuli, Odysseus's contract, she's mad because her schedule is jam-packed with meetings and public speeches. The outfit and her hair is part of the government's Word of Wednesday liturgy, basically over Kanna, this ritual, this ceremony over what she kind of portrays for much of the public. So it's sort of playing into the public's expectation, kind of creating the fantasy of what people expect to see of her. Now, the dress itself was designed by one of the civilian seamstresses that we are not going to get to see in the story, but the hairdo was actually of Rin's machinations. Okay, so Rina is part Japanese, and she's got cousins in Japan who in the past have sent her fan translations of various mangas because Rina doesn't really speak Japanese, but she's the one who suggested that hairstyle to Kanna, you know, wanting some kind of outrageous hairdo to make her seem more ethereal, more like some of the shoujo manga that she had read. And yes, I am implying that Rin and Kanna are willingly going along with this deception. Since they're a bit young still and a little naive, they aren't fully cognizant of the repercussions of toying with people's faith and beliefs and their perception of a person. So they have, in spite of their experiences with the war, they do still have a lot of maturing to do, especially now that the war is settling down. Keisuma hasn't quite yet made the scene, so they're acting probably a little more immature than they should. Out-of-world explanation for her hair and dress. I wanted Kanna to have an epic, fancy fantasy dress that represents that fantasy aspect of the comic. Her hairstyle, actually, I picked it as like a little nod to one of my favorite manga. I've talked about Sailor Moon several times, but the hairdo is supposed to kind of resemble rabbit ears, which is a reference to Usagi, the rabbit of the moon. So that's why I picked such a silly hairdo. I did it on purpose. Next question. Does Kanna have a vendetta against Odysseus? This is referring to how she's treating him in Act 4. And the answer is very complicated to give without spoilers for the series. Some of you in Act 6 who are reading Act 6 have an idea of some of the things going on, but even then not much has been revealed yet. But without giving spoilers, yes and no. She has knowledge of future events, and something happens between her and Odysseus that's not necessarily within their power to control, but it's still is complicated. She doesn't know how to feel about what has happened. She's also spread very thin. She's stressed because of the war. She lost the rest of her family. Her brother had died in a plane wreck before the story even starts, which we don't really know much about that at this point. But she hasn't had time to mourn at all, mourn her mother or father. She hasn't had time to deal with the effects of the war or the sudden responsibility that's been thrusted upon her as being like this figurehead queen, yet still having adult responsibilities when she's still fairly young. So she's just a ball of emotion and tension. She's a bit jealous that he's had even a little bit of time to mourn his mother's passing. She's angry at him for that. It's not necessarily his fault, but she's angry at that. She's angry about future events. She also feels guilty. So she's taking her frustrations out on him, which is wrong. But Rin, if you guys take a look at that page, Rin is Kanna's roommate and has known her the longest, and she's been the recipient of some of Kanna's loud outbursts in the past, which is why she's rolling her eyes in that page. I wanted to be subtle, but I'm glad that people are realizing that Kanna's not being fair to Yuli. And one thing also that I kind of want to touch upon, keep in mind that this is a flashback and it's being told from Yuli's perspective, so it's seen through his eyes and how he recollects the situation. Is he a reliable narrator? We don't know yet. That's to be discovered. Next question. What does that contract say? In Act 4, Yuli is signing a government contract and he becomes a federal employee, essentially, of the USSO. So we see part of the contract. I didn't write the whole thing out because I didn't need to, but it's essentially laying out his duties and his rights. The part that we get a glimpse at is pretty much a near hollow threat regarding breach of contract, going AWOL, dishonorable discharge, all that. It's hollow because it's just kind of scare tactics, since the government is spread so thin. They don't really have resources and time and manpower chasing after deserters, so it's essentially got no teeth. But for those of you who want to know what it says, it reads, by signing this document, the signee agrees to the terms and conditions stated above in the contract. Failure to abide by the rules of conduct and instruction provided by the signee's superiors, with S in parentheses, may result in disciplinary action, withholding of privileges, and or imprisonment in a state or federal retention facility. So that's what it says. I tried to make it sound official. Okay, so spoiler warning. We're getting into Act 6 questions now, so skip ahead to this time if you don't want those spoilers. Is the barrier Renshaw created gone? And the answer is yes. He's passed away, and as such, the large barrier, which required a lot of concentration to keep up and maintain, it has disintegrated, unlike the protection barrier / shield orb that he placed around Kanna that she was captured in. It was actually meant to protect her and keep her out of the fray, but that drained most of the black magic that he had been gifted by Keisuma. But since he is deceased, the barrier is no more. The other one still existed around Kanna because it was smaller and it didn't require as much magic to create. So yeah. Has Renshaw's death affected his timeline? And the answer for that is no. His past self is unaware of anything that's going on. It was his future self that tagged along when Odysseus came back to the past. So he is deceased, but that was his future self, and Shimiko has returned him, or I should say his body, his siblings, and Oshin to the future, and she did so in a way that she dropped them off at the time that they had left the future. So past self is none the wiser. Next up, what did Shimi do? What did Shimi do to Oshin and the siblings? She sent them, as I just mentioned, back to the future where they belong. It's kind of a caveat to this. What is up with Oshin? What's the deal with it? When do we get to actually see him? I mostly included him in Act 6 just to remind people that I didn't forget about him. Shimiko was going around collecting the stragglers who had come with Odysseus from the future to the past. So she's already picked up Oshin, just like she's collecting people. And the only reason why she shows up at this battle is because she was looking for the siblings. Yeah, we only see Oshin because I wanted to make sure that everyone knew I didn't forget him, and neither did she. And Oshin, I'm sorry you guys, he's not going to be in the comic for a while, but I am planting the seeds for his arrival, so he is going to show up eventually. Yeah, so next question. Can Shimiko take on Big K? I love that one of my readers calls Keisuma Big K. It's cute. But the answer is, that's actually a toughie. I realize that Shimiko is super overpowered, but because she's so powerful, that's partly why she uses her magic so sparingly. She can command space and time, so that's not something to kind of use callously or to go about callously. But let's get back to the question, can she take on Keisuma? I think she could. She's not really as cold-hearted as she comes off though, and extracting a demon from some someone can be hard to do, especially without killing the host. So she could kill the host, but it's part of her duty to protect Kanna and the others of the Lotus Matrix. So it's not in her moral code to just off the host, who is her actual ally. That's all I got for this month's Q&A. Question to you: which Dark Horse character would you like to learn more about? To be honest, I want to share so much about all the characters. I mean, I can't wait for Joy Fong and Nikki to get into the story. Oshin, of course. All in good time. All in good time. A big thank you to my patrons. I've been compiling a list of art goods that I want and or need to purchase to give a go and to try. So that's all possible through their support. Thank you very much. If you'd like to join at any level, or if you just want to do a one-time donation, links to that stuff is all down in the description. Otherwise, I will take likes, subs, doing the bell thing. Thank you all for watching. Peace and love. Fare you well. Keep on truckin'.